Hi, welcome to this SQL tutorial video. Today we're going to talk about an introduction to SQL objects and the building blocks of the makeup of a database. So everything in SQL is described as an object, from the database to the data types and everything in between, the tables, the procedures, the triggers. They're all objects. So in order to kind of look at how a database is made up, we look at something called the Object Explorer. So here on screen you can see on the left hand side I've got a little window called the Object Explorer. This window has always been open in all of my videos. You might not have noticed what it was called, but that's what it is. In here we've got various folders. This is just an introduction, so we're not going to go too in depth. Let's just start at kind of the beginning with the databases folder, and in here we've got a list of our databases. Within each database there are more objects. So within a database you're going to have tables, then you're going to have potentially procedures and triggers and other objects, and all of those are listed in this Object Explorer. So if, for an example, I open up this database, we now get a list of these folders here. So we've got a folder called tables. If we click on a little plus here, it lists all of our tables. If I close that up and we click on views, it gives a list of our views. There aren't any in that. And in programmability, we've got sort procedures, functions, types, and other bits in here. So if I choose an example, if I choose the adventure example, this is a much bigger database. So if I click on the plus here and we click on the plus of tables, we get a lot of tables. Maybe I'm looking for a table called address. So what I can do, instead of just trying to kind of eyeball that list of tables, I can right click on the folder here and I can choose filter. And if I choose filter settings, I can do a filter to say the name contains, well, and just put part of the name that I'm looking for. And there are, if I just move this along, 4 tables that have ADDRE in the name. If I right click and go to filter, I can remove that filter. It might be actually that I'm interested in just seeing all of the tables that belong to the production schema. So if I right click, go to filter and go to filter settings, I've got a schema here. Let's say the schema contains purse. Click OK. And it will filter the view, and you know that it's filtered because it's got a little filtered in brackets next to the folder name. When you're doing this, be careful that you get in the right folder, because it's quite easy to filter on the system tables, and that's a completely different set of tables. So in order to look at the database tables that have been created as part of this database here, not the system tables, because there's something else entirely. Make sure you're in the tables folder when you prepare your filters. So let's talk about hold on a second. All of these folders kind of work in the same way. So if I go to store procedures, I can right click store procedures, go to filter settings, and I can put get for the name, and it will filter and just show me the store procedures that have the word get in the name. Right click that folder and remove filter. So all the folders work in the same way. If we go into here and we look at a table, each table, as we've seen when we do our selects, each table has a list of columns, and there's some columns there. So actually maybe what we want to see is I want to know all of the tables that have got a column that's got the name address in the column name. So that's ever so slightly different. We can't do that quite easily in here. If we go to our filters here, we've got kind of limited options what we can choose here. So what we can do is, if we choose if we choose new query, we're already connected. We've got a query now pointing to our database that we're looking at. What we can do is we can interrogate the system tables, and the system tables are the very beginning, the building blocks of a database. They are the tables that store the definition of our user tables, our procedures and functions that we build in our database. So we've talked previously in a previous video, I'll put a shortcut to it in the description, where we talked about schemas. So the system tables belong to the schema sys. So let me just have a little look at, if we do select star from, and we type our schema, there you can see it offers that schema sys. Now, not everybody's got access to the system schema. If you've bought the AdventureWorks database, then you'll have access to it. So if we do sys dot, we now get a list of objects. Okay, here, a list of objects. One of these objects is called tables. And this system table stores a list of our user created tables. So in here we've got you can see all the table names there. We can order by name. Here's a list of all of our tables. Now what we wanted to see was the columns that have the address in the column description. So let us carry on with this bit of code. So we do select star from sys.tables. We can then join that to another table called sys.columns. In order to join these two tables, the joining column is called object ID. So if I do object ID, now if I run, so now I can't run that. Now it says, oh, hold on, I don't know what name is. Name is, if I hover over it, name is ambiguous, and that's true. Name belongs to the columns and the table. Columns and the table. So if I just go to here and I do t.name, then I'm going to order by the table name. Now let's give it a condition, say where c.name, which is our column name, is like address. And if I run that, it's going to show us a chunk of data. Now what it's showing here on the left hand side is our table name, and then if we go across here, eventually we should see our column name, which is here. So let us just tidy this up a tiny bit. Okay, there's our table, and within the address table there are three columns: address ID, address line 1 and line 2. Those have the word address in the column names. Then we've got these other tables here. We've got other system tables that you might be interested in. So as well as the table name, in the table, as part of the options within the sys.tables, you've got a schema name, schema ID. So if I run that, we've got a schema ID, you see here. So we can link that to our a sys.schemas table on the schema ID. So instead of bringing back the t.schema ID, I would bring back the sc.name. So the schema person has these tables under it, then production, project review, and then sales here. All of them have an address in the column name. Now if we just let's bring back all of the column details. Let's look at a final thing in this table here. Each of these columns will have a data type, and there's a type ID here that I'm interested in looking at. So we've got in our sys schema, we've got an option of a table called types. So if I do, oops, oh sorry, it's not. It doesn't look at the table. It's a column. Sorry. User type ID equals ty.user type ID. If I run that, if we just look at, if we run that, so now we've got, here is the type, or data type. So address ID is an integer, line 1 and 2 are nvarchars, as are addresses here, but all the ID columns you can see are integers. That's kind of as far as we're going to go with the objects. So let me just show you something quite kind of good that you can do here. So when this on the left hand side here, when you've got these objects here, so there's a few things you've got to be very careful, because if you click on an object, click on it again, it's quite easy to accidentally rename an object if you've got the permissions to. So be very, very careful. I'll just press escape to go out of that. But what you can do is you can do select star from, and you can drag that here, and it drags this schema in table and allows you just to execute it. That's the end of this tutorial video. I hope you found it helpful.